That was a weird way to start. Anyway, so dude, what's going on with you today?
Oh man, I think I'm doing pretty good. Like, how's your day been?
Well, besides our light fiasco in our studio with our new shooting lights that are apparently decided not to work for us today, right, dude?
Yeah, apparently we got a new light fixture, but for whatever reason, it decided to be a total
pain in the butt. Yeah. Right, dude? Yeah.
Poop emoji.
Yes, it was a total poop emoji. I would agree with that.
You will hear from our lawyers.
Yes, we will be suing. For every penny. Yeah. Anyway, so dude, tell everybody what we have today. Oh, drink break. Hold on.
Oh, yeah. Make sure you get apparently I guess we're drinking LaCroix. This is the unofficial sponsorship of that.
LaCroix. You know you want some.
Yeah,
your mouth is
like
drier
it,
than the Sahara Desert.
Yep, apparently our mouth was a little dry, so we just had to make sure that we were oiled up and ready to go.
Please note, guys, LaCroix is not actually sponsoring us. We just did that as a joke.
Yeah, we're not really. They don't pay us to say that.
Yeah, we don't really have any sponsors.
We don't get any endorsements or anything like
that. We're not that big yet.
Yeah.
Oh, and if you're wondering about the theme behind us, that is called Cyberpunk.
Yep.
I don't know who created it on the Nanoleaf, but someone did. Shout outs to whoever made that theme. It is pretty awesome, and it blinks really quickly. It's actually quite distracting, right, dude?
Yeah, quite distracting and quite lovely, might I add.
Anyway, dude, let's get into our topic.
But, guys.
What's the podcast about today?
Well,
give our audience a brief overview.
Oh, yeah, definitely. A brief overview.
Yeah, you can tell them when you wrote this, too, dude.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So I wrote this particular... I actually wrote this particular article back in April 16th of 2019 for
Hey, dude, you wrote that on my birthday. 10. April 16th.
Yep. Well, wow. Yeah. I actually posted that on your birthday. Go figure.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, go figure. So yeah, this so think of this as a special birthday post dedicated to you for that year.
Cool. Yeah, dude, and you also did about one of the shows that I still do like, actually. Problem Children for Another World.
Problem Children for Another World. And speaking of Problem Children for Another World, this particular episode is going to be dedicated to two major things that you can find in just about any anime.
Before you say those two things, dude,
right?
Ask the audience the same question you asked. Well, actually, no, you don't. Actually, don't finish doing the introduction. Tell them what we're going to be talking about, and then, dude, ask them the question you asked me before we decided to do this topic.
Right.
So go ahead, go ahead and tell everybody.
Yep. So, guys, this has been like a big thing that I've been thinking about. A lot of fans have also been thinking about. Which would you rather prefer? A story driven by the plot, or a story with fleshed out characters? Plot driven or character driven? Which do you prefer?
Really tough choice, to be honest.
It's a huge. It's a big choice.
Yes, it is.
Because there's like a lot of anime that favors one, or favors the other, or has a little bit of both.
Yeah, or is based on a little bit of both too.
Yeah, basically.
So
yeah, I mean, basically when it comes to...
Because it could be, the anime could be, it could be based on a plot, right? Or it could be based on one particular character that happens to revolve around that particular story or that particular event or whatever the case may be, right, dude?
Right. Or it can be just sequences of miniature, that all connect to the plot. That could also advance the different decisions that certain characters may make.
True.
But since we are going to be diving into this a little bit more, let's give our audiences the definition of what a plot-driven story really is.
Okay, dude. Well, did you want to either sum it up, or do you want to just go off?
Yeah, I can basically just give them like a basic summary.
Dude, you don't have to read exactly what.
Yeah,
you wrote.
Yeah, basically not verbatim.
Yeah, on here, but I mean, you can give people a summing up kind of, or update it, I should say. Dude, go ahead. Give us your best. Give us that announcer slash.
Yes.
What do you call that, dude? Your
announcer movie trailer voice?
Yeah. Give us the announcer movie trailer voice.
All right, I'm gonna give it a shot. So, plot driven. A story that is plot driven can be best summed up like this: a plot is a sequence of events that are connected by cause and effect. Plot driven stories are usually fast paced and place the characters in positions where they have to solve problems and figure out ways to escape a deadly situation, or figure out how to solve a puzzle that may lead up to another plot point in the story later on. There are lots of anime titles out there that take on the plot-driven approach, leaving character development as a secondary element to the story. The choices made by the characters of a plot-driven story will advance the overall plot of the story itself, but depending on what type of story it is, it could lead to potential consequences for some of the characters should they find themselves making risky and unfavorable decisions. So basically, in layman's terms, a story or an anime title that's pretty much driven by the plot, there's a lot of
There's a lot of elements to it.
yeah, there's totally a lot of elements.
But so, dude, one of the things I was telling you about was that a lot of stories need those elements. Remember
Right,
how I was
they
talking
do.
about? Remember how we were talking off camera about Evangelion and how the writer purposely puts his a lot of emotional and also
The
problems,
emotional and traumatic piece.
aspects, that he puts in
Yep.
the story. Well, he does that for a reason, and a lot of the aspects he puts in there are there because without it, you wouldn't have such the crazy, in-depth, really awesome story that you have without
Yeah, it
those
would kind of
parts.
feel hollow.
Yeah, it would feel
without
hollow
it.
and kind of empty. So you need some of those pieces. And dude, that's I think what is wrong with some of the shows today is they don't have that piece. There are shows out there where people just watch them for mindless entertainment, and there's no really deep story. There's nothing that really hooks you into
That's
universe.
really not driving.
Yeah, it doesn't drive you into the universe. And so whenever someone like you or me or someone who has watched anime for a while watches it, we're like, oh wow, this is terrible compared to like what we're used to watching.
Well, I mean,
where
if you
it's
could,
like-
well, I mean, dude, if you
so-
could give like a prime example, what show do you think follows the whole plot-driven archetype?
Okay, so here's a good. I don't know if this is a great example, but like, so if you think of a show that is more plot driven, let's go. Okay, I'm trying to think of something. Let's go. I feel like there's a lot of them. They follow both rules. Though I do feel like there's a lot of shows that are kind of a mix between both. I was gonna say Dragon Ball Z, and Dragon Ball Super, but I don't think that's a great example because that could be both character driven or plot
Yeah,
driven.
you're
depending on
kind
the way
of
you-
looking at both.
How
lanes.
about Seven Deadly Sins? Let's go Seven Deadly
Yeah.
Sins, right? Seven Deadly Sins. Seven Deadly Sins seems like it's more of character driven because of the fact that it focuses around Elizabeth and finding the seven deadly sins. At least the first part of it does. Okay?
Right.
Now that could be argued. I'm not saying that it is, but because it could be argued that it could be also plot driven too, since they use the seven deadly sins as a plot device to move the story forward.
Right.
So it could really go both either ways. But just for the sake of giving you a good example, I'm gonna say plot driven due to the fact that the plot revolves around Elizabeth for the first season, finding the seven deadly sins, right? And also that's what kind of pushes the story forward in the beginning.
True.
Right? So that's a good one. One that seems more character driven. Something that would be more character driven would be like, let's say this is an older anime, but let's say Be Gotta HK. Just
boy.
because. So okay, the reason I picked that, and if you guys are wondering why I picked Be Gotta HK, is because that one has to do more with a character's kind of choice to do something. It's not really
they kind of like their
yeah.
mantra, like their mission.
Yeah, exactly, and that's more character driven because it's all about her trying to find her first time.
Yeah.
So we're not going to go over what that means. You guys should be old enough if you're watching this to know.
Yeah,
what
pretty
that
much
means.
anybody that's watching this podcast pretty much knows what
Yeah.
the
If
the
you
first
are
time is like.
if you're underage, you shouldn't be watching this.
Probably not. But speaking of character driven, why don't we go ahead and give certain people who haven't really heard the full definition of what character driven pretty
Well,
much means.
did you run through all the plot driven stuff? Okay, yeah, you already did the announcement. Okay,
Oh
so,
yeah. That's just basically like the definition and what
yeah. Well, dude,
what will constitute as a plot driven.
yeah, dude. Let's do the character.
All
driven
right,
one then.
here we go again.
Yeah, here comes the announcer.
Alrighty.
Get ready.
Yep. So character driven. A story that is character driven is more focused on the characters than the actual complexity of the plot. This simply means that the artist or the creator is 100% focused on the character development, such as the dynamic relationships between certain characters, as well as the inner transformations and emphases that they may have about themselves. Just like with plot-driven stories, Character-driven ones focus on how the character arrives at a particular moment within the plot. The plot in these types of stories is what develops the character. So basically, right up here, we already know, we already have like a good example of who might be character-driven. It's just like you mentioned back in DBZ.
Yeah.
The Prince of All Saints, of course.
Well, yeah, he's more character driven because he is his whole yeah,
His whole demeanor at first, which is kind of it's kind of surprising to me. At
what's the word I'm looking for, dude?
It's
his same pride. He's obsessed with his pride.
He's totally obsessed with his pride.
And that could be considered character driven since it's his own personal vendettas and his own
his own choices within the storyline is pretty much driven by his pride, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. So that could be a more character driven type situation, right?
Yeah, I think Vegeta's situation he kind of surprises a little bit. I wouldn't say I'm totally surprised by the situation, but originally, and this is coming from the mouth of the creator, Akira Toriyama. Originally, like when he first started DBZ, when he got through the Saiyan arc, he didn't really want Vegeta to get. I guess somewhere in between, like right before the Saiyan arc ended, he wasn't really supposed to go as far as he did. But eventually, as the years went by, he became a fan favorite. His character became a little more fleshed out.
Yeah, Toriyama wasn't apparently planning to write that much for all the rest of the characters. The only one he really
wasn't really a big fan of
the only one he really had really good writing for was Goku in the original storyline. He kind of I can't remember the exact thing they said about what was exactly said, but they did say something about he didn't have enough writing or there was very little writing for some of the characters in Toriyama's version. It wasn't until some of the writers who worked with Toriyama stepped in to actually write more for some of the characters.
kind of give him like an idea.
So,
of what's going on. But dude, I would probably say if you were to pick like a couple of anime titles like out of the blue, like that you've seen in like the last 10 years or so.
Yeah.
Which ones would jump out of you that have that character-driven aspect of the story?
You said pick a character, Dante?
Well, not like necessarily pick a character, but kind of have like that character-driven.
I mean, dude, I think you pretty much covered a couple of them, or we covered a few of them.
Well, I mean, yeah. Well, Vegeta's one of them, but there are some other ones too.
I mean, okay, if you're gonna ask me to give examples, I would say so. Vegeta's a big one, of course.
Yeah.
But if you had to give one that's more plot-driven, I would say Goku is more plot-driven because he doesn't really have that same pride aspect to him. So he's not focused on his own.
He's pretty much the main MC. So
and also think about it. He's driven by finding a good opponent.
He just likes fighting,
really, which is pretty much the point of the show: is defeat the villain, overcome the obstacles in your path. Right. That's the whole in the whole thing with DBZ and with Super is just overcome. You find the next level and achieve. Just keep pushing yourself. Overcome the odds.
Right.
So, overcoming adversity. Who the hell do you think I am? Shout out to Cali Bear.
I know, right? Well, speaking of which, what would you consider Gurren Lagann plot driven or character driven?
Depends on the character, and also depends on like what your. It depends on like I guess what your. I guess it depends on kind of what you're following in Gurren Lagann. Because if you are following like a specific character, right, like Kamina or someone like that,
Kamina.
You could say it could be character driven. But I feel like with that show, it's more plot driven than it is character driven. Since you don't really because Kamina dies, and also a lot of the other characters do die during the show, right? You don't really have a main character who you're following the entire time. The first piece of Gurren Lagann possibly character-driven, due to the fact that Kamina wants to get up to the surface, and he's tired of his lifestyle. So that could be considered character-driven, because that's something that Kamina and a lot of the people agree on, or Kamina and the main characters agree on, right? The main cast, right? But then later on in the show, it's more of plot-driven, because you're not following one character throughout the whole show.
True.
Whereas like Vegeta, and you're not following one character's desires or will to do anything. It's just
it's the plot's not really centered around that whole just that whole character,
and because of what happens, kind of causes it's more cause and effect. What they do in the show ends up causing a bunch of other stuff to happen, which then pushes the plot forward.
Right.
So yeah, that's a tough one, dude. That's hard to say.
Okay, let me see. Let me give you.
But Seven Deadly Sins could go either way, because if you think about Seven Deadly Sins has really good characters, right? That are really deep, have deep connection to the story, but also push the story forward, and also are affected by the actual plot of the story.
Right.
So you know what I mean?
True. I mean, let's see. I could. There's like several others I can probably throw at you.
Okay, what about, dude? If you're gonna throw some at me, okay, I got a good one. What about a show like, let's see, let's think of a really hard one. Okay, how about Shiver of a Failed Knight? What do you think?
Shiver of a Failed, yeah,
that's a hard one.
Oh, well, actually, it's not as hard as you think. I think that particular one. It kind of has a mix of both, because on the one hand, you got Iki Kuragane. You know, he's already, you already know his situation. He's kind of like the bottom of the totem pole. He's just basically, he doesn't really have any special powers or anything like that. He's just basically a loser to everybody else.
True. And well, I wouldn't call him a loser. He's more of, in
their eyes,
he's more of his family hates him. His family doesn't like him, right? Because he doesn't have any special powers. He can't shoot flames or go Super Saiyan.
He's not really gifted. Like everyone else.
He does have a gift. He just doesn't have anything extraordinary.
Right.
Like the family doesn't. They don't value the talents that he does have.
Right.
He has cool talents. He can do some amazing stuff with a sword. And nobody ever sees it. Nobody ever knows about it until
as the plot progresses, he eventually shows that. In fact, right in the first episode, he even shows that to like one of the top students in the story, who eventually falls in love with him.
Yeah, you're talking about, what's her name?
Stella Vermillion.
Stella, yes. Yeah.
I think with that particular story, you kind of you basically got a mix of both, because you're looking at a story full of action, a story about romance, a story about, I guess, proving people wrong, redemption.
Okay, so
it's
yeah, I mean,
it's a little bit of all three if you think about it.
You could argue that the plot in that show does drive the. You could argue that the plot in that show does drive the story forward.
Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily say it's like one or the other. It's kind of like a little bit of both.
But I feel like that show also has a lot to do with characters too, because I feel like the characters also drive that story forward. Because if you think about it, Dante, the whole entire story, you're following Iki Kuragane the whole story.
Right.
In a way, it could be a little bit of both, but I feel like it leans more towards character driven than it does plot driven.
Right.
In some way. Now I got another one for you. What about Don Machi? What do you think about that one? What do you think, plot driven or character driven? Because that's hard. I mean, Don Machi's plot does have a lot to do with the story.
It does.
But at the same time, you are following a main protagonist the entire time, who does kind of drive the story forward in some way, right? The actions he takes and the things that he does do drive the story forward.
I mean, basically, if you look at his character growth within the first season, basically he was just trying to,
He does have his own things that he wants to accomplish.
Right.
So he does have his own goals and his own kind of morals and stuff that keep him going, right?
Yep, and that's Belle Cornell, just so you guys know.
Yeah, and also Hestia. Goddess Hestia.
The bestia.
Yeah, that's what they say. At least.
Yeah, come on. you gotta go with that.
Hestia, don't get angry at me now.
All right. let me see if I can throw another one at you. High School Dxd.
Okay, High School. Okay, so dude, that's kind of an easy one though, because DxD. Here's my argument for saying this, right? Yeah. DxD is almost completely driven forward by Issei Hyodo. The reason why I say that, right, is because if he hadn't died, or if he hadn't taken the actions he did, none of that would have happened, right? So that's pretty much character driven. You can tell by Issei Hyodo's kind of what his goal in life is, right? Pretty much drives the entire story forward.
I know, right?
So yeah, I mean that's
And it kind of seems like everyone else is kind of along for the ride.
Okay, so how about Sekirei?
Okay. Ooh,
what do you think? Sekirei is tricky. What do you think? I feel like that would be character driven as well.
That one to me actually seems a little more plot
Why do you say that though? I mean,
well,
the Game Master started it.
At first, it's kind of like a little bit of a plot.
Yeah.
But
think about it, dude.
Yeah.
If the main protagonist hadn't done what he did, right, then you would have never had nothing. None of the stuff that happens in the story would have ever happened. Now, you could argue that because you could say that the Game Master still would have done what he did, even if some of the people that participated didn't participate, right? But they did, and also because the people participated in that and the characters did fight, that caused a bunch of other things to happen, which caused the story to move forward.
True.
So, dude, you could say that is kind of character driven in some way, you know. And
True.
the fact that Game Master is the starter of it, right, kind of also leads into
he's basically the one that initiated the whole thing.
Yeah, so I mean, he kind of started the whole thing, which means that you are kind of going in a
now why he did it, I'm not sure. Yeah. Maybe it was out of fun.
He let's just say he has his reasons. Also, they never did finish Sekirei, unfortunately. Which is kind of sad. It never got finished. It's one of those unfinished stories.
Unfortunately, only got like 2 seasons, sadly.
Yeah. I think they stopped it there's a reason. I can't remember. I heard something about why they didn't finish it. I can't remember. Either the creator or something happened to one of the people working on it or whatever, and
at least
they didn't finish it or whatever.
That's kind of what I heard.
Yeah. Who knows exactly? We have to. Maybe one day we'll find out when the creator,
one day
someone comes forward.
We'll definitely find
also,
out.
just to mention, DxD is also not finished too. There's more to High School Dxd.
Yeah, there's.
They never.
From
finished.
what I've heard, weren't they supposed to do like a fifth?
They were supposed to, but I think something happened to the creators, or something happened to someone big working on the project. Something happened to him. I don't know if he's still alive or not. I'm not sure actually what happened to him, but whatever happened, because of that he couldn't finish the story. So
right.
Also, I heard people were in an uproar about the art style.
Basically, from what I heard, right after I think it was not the second season, but the third and onwards, they actually switched
the art
studios.
Style, yes.
They switched studios.
They gave it a more smooth and soft looking art style to the characters, rather than going
and basically I heard, unfortunately, basically from what I heard on a couple of the comment sections, they reduced Rias's boob size.
No, that's not true. They didn't do that.
I don't know how authentic that is.
Okay, but. So I've seen the last season of Dxd, Dante, or at least the last one that came out. Right? That was a threat made by one of the villains, and also made by what's his name. That was made by one of the characters to get Issei to power up to a ridiculous level to.
Wait, was it either by her brother or that other dude that I?
No, I can't think of the guy's name. Dang it! But yeah, it was just an empty. It was like a booster to get Issei to power up to a ridiculous level. It was inspiration that they did. Anyway, so that's not necessarily true. You have to watch the last season. Yeah, I have all of it if you want everyone to watch it.
Yeah, I might have to look into that one. Wait. Let me see.
Go back to the plot-driven thing, Dante. What did you have another?
Well, I was going to give you another one.
And
of course this one, this one can arguably either be one or the other, but I think it's probably going to be the latter than the former. So, Akame ga Kill. Plot or character?
I feel like that's probably going to be character driven, only because the people who started Night Raid, right, are characters and they have their own goals, and they also, when they begin the story, Night Raid is kind of what drives the story forward, right?
It is.
And also the other thing too is that you're also still following Tatsumi, right? Most of the time, not all the time. So it could actually go the opposite way too. It could go plot driven too, in some way. But yeah, I feel like that is also a good example of a character driven story. At least to me, I feel like it's more character driven than it is plot driven.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah, so it's interesting. Now, you could make the argument that almost every show that you follow a main character could be considered character driven, but not always, because it depends on whether the main character has goals or has his own psychological or physical issues to deal with during the show. Sometimes the characters have problems, but they're not necessarily it's not necessarily a psychological or physical problem. it could be something down the line, like later on in the plot or later on in the
Yeah,
story.
that you don't find out until later on.
Yeah, that you don't find out until later on, which could switch the direction of the entire story. So instead of being a character-driven story, it could switch from character-driven to plot-driven.
Or in some cases, you can even switch back.
Yeah, depending on what kind of problem or what kind of stuff that's thrown into the story that causes the story to change or causes that character change later on down the road.
Right. Oh, let me see. I think I got one more for you. It's an old classic. How do you feel about Space Dandy? Plot driven or character driven?
So Space Dandy is definitely plot driven.
Yeah.
Or no, sorry.
What?
I'm sorry, I screwed up. I'm sorry. Space Dandy is definitely character driven. Because the story centers around Dandy, and Dandy
He's a dandy guy in space.
Yeah, well, there's a big secret at the end of the story. Dandy is actually the missing element to the whole entire universe. He is the key element to the universe in Space Dandy, which you find out at the end. Now, not to spoil anything for anybody, but
well, you kind of did.
There's a big reveal. I won't say. No, actually,
okay.
I tried to give too much away.
Yeah. Don't give too much away.
I might have given a tiny bit away, saying that he's the main.
You gave him a sprinkle.
Sprinkle. He is the main
just salt
piece of the story, right? I'm not going to tell you how or why, right? But he is the main. The story centers around him for a reason. And you don't find that out till the end of the story. So the reason for saying that it is mostly character-driven is because the entire time you follow Dandy, you're in the dark about this big reveal that happens in the end. And when Dandy gets asked something later on and something happens, you'll find out that that's why that's why everything is the way it is in Dandy, and it's also why. That's also why I said that it's mostly character-driven. So you could argue that Dandy does have a story, but the story doesn't necessarily drive... the story is not necessarily what pushes the show forward. It's more of Dandy's decisions and what happens to Dandy himself that pushes the story forward due to the big reveal at the end, which I'm not going to reveil.
You guys have to watch the show to find out.
The only thing I can say is, thank you, boobies.
Oh, man, I know, right? Yeah. Oh, man.
The booty, baby.
But, yeah, I think back to the decision with plot-driven and character-driven, it's kind of like well, if you ask any fan, I already know that, like, off the bat, you love a good story.
Yes, of course. I'm a sucker for a good story.
Yeah, you're a sucker for good stories. Yeah. You're a sucker for great characters. So I would probably say you like a little mix of the two.
I do, yes. I prefer good plot and good story, as well as plot-driven and character-driven stories kind of mixed together.
Yeah, kind of have like that even balance.
Yeah.
Because I know in
symmetry is key.
Oh,
Everything must be aesthetically pleasing.
Exactly.
Am I right?
Speaking of which, Soul Eater. Would it be plot-driven or character-driven?
So that's a hard one because in certain parts of it, you get the feeling like it's character-driven, but in other segments of it, you're like maybe it is more plot-driven. That's tough. It depends on how you look at the story. If you're looking at the story from a standpoint of collecting Kishin souls and you kind of getting rid of the evil souls, and collecting them and stopping the Kishin,
right.
Then that could be considered plot driven. But when you look at the character goals and each individual character and what they want to achieve right for themselves, that's different. So like all of the weapons want to become a death scythe, right?
Right.
So that's more of a character-driven plot because each character has a goal in mind they want to achieve, and they make the decisions they do because they want to get to that next level, or they want to collect all those souls to become a death scythe. Yeah. So that could also be considered character-driven in a way. And in fact, I'd probably say that's probably a mixture of both, Dante.
Yeah, both plot-driven. Both.
Because if you think about it, right, every character has a goal in mind. Like Death the Kid wants to, Death the Kid's goal is to collect all 200 Kishin souls and become become a Grim Reaper.
Yeah, and so is Maka and Soul. They want to definitely do the same thing.
Yeah. So.
But ultimately, guys. Well, I guess we kind of want to ask you how you felt about it. I mean, a lot of people may say that they love like a good
Well,
story.
dude, if I were you, I'd ask our audience.
Yeah.
Which do you prefer, plot-driven or character-driven?
Do you
and
like
why?
a good story
Yeah.
that pulls you in for a wild ride, or are you looking for a title with characters who have emotions and feeling that you can relate to?
Yeah. Or do you like both mixed together? Or are you one of those people that can't choose? Because that's how I was when this dude asked me.
Yeah.
I couldn't pick because I like both of them. It's hard to choose between the two of them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Yep. So, plot driven or character driven? Which do you prefer?
Now, okay. Now, here's an interesting argument for you, Dante. Do you think, right?
Yeah.
You just made me ask another question, okay?
All right.
So here's the thing, okay? Do you, right, and I'll ask you this question first before I ask the audience. Do you think that that a plot-driven story versus a character-driven story, which one do you think is better? Do you think there's a difference between having a plot-driven story, right, that's driven by a main plot and a main theme, or just a main goal, or even just a main story in general, right?
Right.
Or do you think it's better to have a character-driven story where each character or maybe the main character has a goal or an end game to get to, and has to stumble upon or stumble through all of the speed bumps and troubles in life to be able to reach that goal and overcome his problems, or overcome kind of like what happened to Shinji Ikari, having to overcome those emotional problems and everything to then to then figure himself out or herself out and get to the end goal, or that their final either power level or achievement or whatever they're trying to do, right?
Right.
End of the story. What do you think, dude? Do you think there's a difference between quality?
If it were like really up to me, I would probably say that in terms of a plot-driven story, I mean, you're basically getting like those little bits and pieces. It's kind of like a puzzle if you think about it. Like you have like your beginning piece, like your middle piece, and a couple other
and
pieces.
Your end piece, yeah.
Yep, and your end piece after that.
But if you think about it though, dude, if you're doing just a plot-driven story, you may not get all of the character details or all the defined details.
You may not even get their background, what their dynamics are.
So, for example, right, Attack on Titan, right? Attack on Titan is a story that is kind of nothing.
like the first, like
nothing in the beginning.
Like the first and second seasons. To me, I think that's basically. You already know it's a survival story.
It is, yes.
Because I think because if you remember that time we met J. Michael, he basically told you that it's basically a survival. They got to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
So to me, I think that whole story was driven by its plot, and
True,
the plot was to.
But you know what?
Kill the Titans.
I'm gonna counter argue that. I'm gonna say that in a way, yes, some of it was plot driven, but remember, you're still following the scouts. And you're still following Eren Yeager,
right?
And Eren Yeager drives the story forward by his will to eliminate Titans, at least in the beginning part of the story,
right?
Seeing his family die made him want to eliminate Titans. So in a way, it could also be character driven in some ways.
Yeah, it could definitely.
Now that changes down the line because events happen that cause other things to happen, which cause more people to die. And also characters' decisions cause people to die. So it could flip back and forth. That could be one that kind of flips between character-driven and plot-driven, depending on certain decisions that characters make, or certain events that happen in the story that cause a wall to fall down, or someone to get eaten, or someone wants to gain a new Titan power, right? And they have to eat the other person. So yeah, I mean, it could be a couple different things,
Yeah, it totally could be. But,
okay, dude. No, we were talking about something yesterday, and I thought this was funny. What do you think about, and this is going to be a hard one, what do you think about a fairy tale, okay? Shows like fairy tale. Remember how I was telling you about how every time I watch a show that involves friendship, I get sick to my stomach, I think I'm going to hurl. Yeah. Dude, because of the friendship doohickey mawacky.
I know how you, I definitely know how you feel about cheesy plot lines.
Yes.
But I would probably say, I mean
if you think about it, right, that could be considered plot driven or character driven, depending on how you look at the storyline, right? Because
Yeah,
the
it's hard
characters,
to announce. It's hard to,
the,
it's
the,
hard
char-
to see if it's going to be like
the
both,
characters in the story do drive the story forward,
right.
but at the same time, you do have a plot that also does play a part in driving events forward and causing things to happen.
Right.
So
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of like a mix.
It's a mixture,
It's a mixed
yeah.
mixed bag. But yeah, it's pretty much a big.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But
so,
yeah, guys, I think well, that'll pretty much wrap it up.
oh,
but,
dude, was there anything else you wanted to mention, Dante? Anything else you
yes,
wanted to talk
yes, there is.
Well, like, dude, what about the fact about this article, Dante? Did you want to tell me
Yeah,
about,
yeah.
you know?
So, yeah, guys, if you're curious about the article of where to find it, I actually just was able to relink it back because we were unable to find it earlier. Because eventually we did wanted to do this episode like several weeks ago, but I couldn't find the article. But yeah, if you just hop on our website, dnmablog.com, you can find it under alternative filler post, the little black button with it has shadow on it and everything. It's black and red. You can't miss it. So yeah, it's going to be our DNA breakdown, plot driven versus character driven in anime.
Yes.
Easy to find, not easy to miss.
Yeah, and also, this podcast actually was kind of an updated version of that whole plot, right, dude? Because
Right.
that article was written quite a while ago, wasn't it?
Oh
dude?
yeah.
When did you wrote that on what?
I
What was
wrote
the
this
date?
on your birthday
Yeah, and
2 years ago.
wow. So yeah, it's so guys, it's like 2 years old. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
2 years
actually-
old, but it's still kind of relevant to this very day.
so yeah, dude, and let everyone know that we might be picking more of these for.
Yeah, we might be
podcast.
surfing through some blasts from the past posts that we've done.
Yeah.
You know, for future episodes. And also, we do have more figures coming. So there will be some more DNA Studios product reviews in the future.
Yes, hopefully we can also do stuff to talk more about anime with
Right.
studios. It won't be as long as the podcast episodes.
No, it won't.
But we'll get to talk about more. We'll get to talk about more anime and stuff. We'll go into more about different stories and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, figures. There's a lot of figures coming.
Boy, you have no idea.
We got a ton, some good ones too. So stay tuned.
Yeah, definitely. So, on that note, I think that'll pretty much do it. So, yeah.
Yep.
I guess you're ready to pretty much
Yeah,
take us out?
let's wrap this up.
So, until next time, stay nerdy, stay safe, and stay awesome. There will be more to come very soon. Until next time, guys.
Peace.
Peace. We are out of here.
Get excited.